Hello again. In this video, we're going to go to an area that is often neglected but yet plays a major role in the biblical story. We're going to go to the biblical Negev and further south to the wilderness areas. Let's get started. Find Regional Map 2 in your Israel Study Manual.
This map has the Judean area, the southern arena as I've called it in the last video, with its 5 regions: the coastal plain, the Shephelah, the highlands, the Judean wilderness, and the Rift Valley. But it also depicts a little further south, and that's what we want to focus on. Let's put in the Judean mountain ridges so we can get oriented in relation to the previous map. And now let's shade in the Rift Valley. The lowest point of the rift is the Dead Sea. South of the Dead Sea, it's called the Arabah. Now below or south of the Judean hills, it's what's called the biblical Negev. I will call it the biblical Negev because in modern Israel they call everything south of the hills all the way down to the Red Sea the Negev. But that was not the case in the Bible. The Negev was just the region south of the hills. It is made of less soil, that's wind-blown soil. Now, it's not good for crops, but it is acceptable for grazing. So this was the area where the patriarchs spent a great deal of time. Let's shade it in yellow. Now note 2 cities marked with X's on your map. Arad in the eastern Negev and Beersheba in the western Negev. South of the biblical Negev, you may notice something on your map that looks like craters. They're actually what is called a maktesh, that's Hebrew for mortar bowl. And actually it is an erosion cirque. There are 7 in the world, 5 of them in Israel and 2 just across the border in Egypt, so they're very unique to this area. Although interesting, they're not what we want to focus on, but they help us locate what we do want to see on this map. 3 ridges of the hills go around the makteshim, or around these cirques. Go ahead and mark these on your map. All this was to be able to demarcate a dry wilderness area that sits between these ridges that encircle the makteshim. This wilderness is made of sandstone and chalk, and it drains to the east to the Arabah. This is called the wilderness of Tzin. Hebrew, it's called the Midbar Tzin. And it's not to be confused with the wilderness of Sin, which is on the other side of the Sinai Peninsula. It is in this wilderness of Tzin that a good portion of the 40 years of the wilderness wanderings took place. Now watch a little of this video from the series God in the Real World.
I'm hiking in the wilderness of Zin today. It's a vast wasteland on the southern end of modern Israel. Actually, we're going to hike up a little finger of this wilderness on the western side called the Canyon of Avdat. Let's go. We're south of Beersheba. That's where the patriarchs hung out. And the rolling hills of the less soil, that wind-blown soil, gives way to sandstone hills and very deep valleys and scarps and rocky outcroppings. It's a beautiful place to hike. There's springs scattered throughout here. It's a very desolate place. You don't get much rain though, because up north you get the rain coming off the Mediterranean, but down here, you're east of the Sahara Desert. At best, you get 3 inches. Here is the Sinai Peninsula, outlined in yellow. The southern end of the Sinai Peninsula is made up of dramatic granite peaks. That is probably where Mount Sinai is located. There, God established a covenant with the people he rescued from slavery out of Egypt. Then he had them travel north toward the land he had promised to give them. As you head north, you leave the granite peaks for large, desolate areas of dry wilderness. Until World War I, no one had ever attacked the land of Palestine from this south side because, quite frankly, there's not enough water to sustain an army. The first wilderness they came through was the wilderness of Paran. Passing through that, they arrived at a place called Kadesh Barnea. Today, it's on the Egyptian border. It's from Kadesh Barnea that they sent out the spies to spy out the land of Israel that God had promised them. After the spies returned and they made their decision, then they began to head east. And as you head east, you head into the wilderness of Zin.
You ready to go? I am. You ready to dive into the Word? Let's go. But before we go, we've got to know the northern arena. That's what the next video is about.